Hello everyone, welcome back to Jet Scale Models. Today's episode we're going to be looking at part 3 of the amusing hobby KF-51 Panther 4th generation main battle tank build. And with this, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be priming out the bare plastic. Following that, what we're going to do is start with the overall main base color. And then in the next episode, we'll start getting into doing the stencil and introducing the black and the green that is part of this unique digital camouflage. So next up is the tracks, which I am using a mahogany primer surfacer color from the Mr. Color range, and I guess I'm going for a bit of a rusty color here. I could have introduced a little bit of a metallic color, I think, like further on, but I'm actually going to be aging these tracks down with dirt and dust, so most of this won't be seen. For the base color, I've decided to go with a lacquer paint from Real Colors by AK. I've decided to use RLM02 RLM-Grau. It comes with an instruction sheet that has a color callout, but the paints that they are using is MIG paints, and there's nowhere I can buy those except online. And with the shipping costs and everything, it's just not worth it. So whether those were the right colors or not, I've decided to go with this Real Colors by AK paint. I made my selection by looking at different photographs on the internet, and there is a wide variation in how this gray is portrayed. It's not a gray in the normal sense of a gray, it's actually quite a yellowy gray. You'll see later in this video where I have two other paints from AK Colors that maybe are a little bit too hot for what I wanted to portray this color as. I did think to maybe take one or two drops from one or the other of these other bottles of paint, but I ended up just sticking with the straight RLM02, and I'm happy with it. To thin this paint down, I use my usual Mr. Color thinner. I usually use the leveling kind, I find that it's the best one for me. I like to thin my paints down quite a bit as well. You can see here with the barrel, I had to paint the inside of the barrel before I could enclose it with the top half of the armor plate. So I would suggest you do that too. One thing I did notice in one of the videos that was released from Rheinmetall about this vehicle is that there may be a bit of a screen that goes in those L-shaped recesses, but I decided not to bother modifying my barrel by cutting out those areas there and then gluing in the screen, because I think the perforations on the screen are so tightly woven that it probably wouldn't really be noticed at this scale. There were a couple of sink marks on the barrel armor and also along the seam. I used some black CA and sanded that down, then primed it out again. Here's a few of the photographs that I was able to find on the internet regarding this vehicle, and you can see that the gray is actually almost a light tan or a beige color. And this is the color that I decided to go with, as I mentioned before. And these are the other two, which, as you can see, are a lot yellower than what I decided to go with. I could have experimented and put a little bit of the early sand yellow into the RLM02, or maybe the other one there beside it, but I ended up just going with this RLM02 as my overall base color. And of course, I'm using the Mr. Color Thinner to thin down my paint. My scratch-built drone enclosure got a little bit of overspray, so I needed to touch that up a little bit. Since I had the primer out, I decided to prime out the hatches, which I had neglected earlier. So this is the driver's hatch, and then I'll be doing the hatches that are on the turret, as well as one of the ammo cans that is for the machine gun setup. A remote operated weapon station can be mounted on the rear of the turret roof to provide close-in defense and a counter unmanned aircraft system capability. An option for this is the Rheinmetall Natter, which can be armed with a 7.62 mic gun that can be elevated from -15 degrees to +85 degrees. When thus armed, it can carry 2,500 ready rounds. After I painted the barrel with the top coat, I noticed there was a few gaps that needed to be filled again. So I pulled out the Tamiya putty and made quick work of those little dimples. I don't use masks when I paint my road wheels for my tank models. I just hand paint them. I find it to be a bit stimulating and relaxing. What I'm using is some Vallejo acrylic paint, and this is on top of the lacquer base paint, so it'll be easily removed if I make any goof ups. I made a custom mix for the tires using smoke black and dark gray, and I'm just mixing the two of them together, probably around 50-50, and then I'm brushing it on. I don't want to have it completely black, but I don't want it also just really like gray. Next up, we're going to paint the rubber pads that are on the tracks. And while a lot of you might think I'm a little bit kooky, I like to paint them just as I'd paint any other detail. And I just wanted to make it look really good. So I've gone on all of the sides and on the face of the rubber pad itself. Now, of course, I don't need to paint all of them because a lot of it will be hidden behind the fenders and on the ground. But I just wanted to make an exercise to see how beautiful these might look with the two different colors. So with the tracks all painted and the barrel primed out in black again, I decided to try and improve the look of the coaxial machine gun. So I used a couple of pieces of brass tubing that I have. So now that the pieces of the gun barrel are all together, I can finally put the two halves of the turret together. So after all that painting, it's time to have a little look and see how this all looks together. So I'm just doing a quick little dry fit with the road wheels. Next up though is I have to mask off this area that needs to go black, which represents some kind of ventilation screen on the back hull. So I'm just cutting up some nice pieces of Tamiya tape and slowly making a nice masking of the area that needs to get masked off, and then I'll come back and spray it with some of the Mr. Surfacer 1500 black. It's got a nice sheen to it. It's not too shiny, but it's not flat. So using some Mr. Color metal colors, I'm going to paint some surface areas where perhaps the paint has been worn off with the interaction with the track. Please ignore the surface area of the faces of these sprocket wheels. There shouldn't be any wear on that, so I'll have to go back and repaint that with the RLM02. The only surfaces that come in contact with the track, so to speak, is this area here where the paintbrush is painting now. So the nice thing about these metallic colors is that you can buff them up and give them a nice shine. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a wash using an acrylic clear coat, and then I'm going to add a little drop of the Vallejo black, and that'll give me a nice, what they call a magic wash. So I'm going in there just to pin wash these areas and pull out some of the detail. I don't want to go too dark or too heavy. I'm going to be doing some aging and weathering to my tank, but it's not going to be as if it's full on in a dirty, muddy war zone or anything like that. It's just going to have maybe been driven on the field as a sample for whoever might be wanting to buy one of these things. I don't want it to be pristine clean because that might be a little bit too much toy-like, so I will be doing some aging and weathering to this thing. Just not to the usual level that you see with armor models, with all the chipping and the rust and the mud and all that stuff. I'm just going to do a tasteful aging. Alright, that'll do it for this episode. If you're not already a subscriber, become one so you don't miss anything going forward. If you'd like to help support the channel, become a patron. There is a link in the lower right corner of the channel banner. In the meantime, and in between time, that's another edition of Jet Scale Models.